Have you fallen into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature Underground. According to the federal government, my name is Hunter Lanier, and I am here today once again with a review of an upcoming movie. This time it is Caught Stealing, the latest film from director Darren Aronofsky, who has directed one of my favorite all-time movies, The Wrestler, but who has also greatly annoyed me in the past by over-explaining Mother. Considering that Aronofsky's filmography is made up almost entirely, some might say entirely, of big swings, Caught Stealing comes as a bit of a surprise. Without a doubt, it is Aronofsky's safest and most straightforward movie. Though it can veer into darker territory from time to time, the film betrays none of Aronofsky's previous inclination to deeply disturb you with the darkest corners of the human experience. Caught Stealing has dark corners, they're just not very dark. The film wants you to feel things, but not too much. Not to the extent that you'd leave the theater upset or not want to buy another bag of popcorn. This is Darren Aronofsky trying to make his version of a fun popcorn movie. Is it fun, though? Yes and no. I love the spirit of Caught Stealing. It very much, the film takes place in the late 1990s in New York City, and it has that grungy 90s spirit to it. The story itself is about an ex-high school baseball star who is now stagnating in probably a rent-controlled New York apartment. He works as a bartender. He follows the San Francisco Giants like they're a religion. He calls his mother every single day. He spends time with his girlfriend. In many ways, he is this very quaint caricature of a good old American boy, but dipped twice like an ice cream cone into the grime of the asphalt jungle. One thing leads to another, and he somehow ends up on the wrong side of just about every unsavory party in the city, one of whom is a British punk that lives next door, played by Matt Smith, who is one of the movie's bright spots. There are guns, there are surprises, there are bizarre twists. The movie is constantly shuffling you along so that you never really have time to question anything that's happening. It has this very strong rolling downhill energy that really works in its favor. It's kind of like when you're driving really fast and you go over a pothole and you don't really feel the hole because you're going so fast. That's kind of the way that the movie just glides over a lot of its own weaknesses. Now, if the potholes in the film were large enough, it could be going 1,000 miles per hour and it wouldn't matter. You would still feel them. But the characters, the dialogue, the action, everything is just good enough to where it keeps it a smooth ride. Now, you may have noted a slight passive-aggressive comment in that last sentence when I referred to the movie's qualities being just good enough. Now, the reason I say that is because as fun as the movie is, and as great as some of the characters are, and as great as the cast is, the movie does have a strong airplane novel quality to it, in that it is heavily reliant on cliches much of the time. Now, even if you dislike Aronofsky's films, if he's not your director of choice, I don't think even his most venomous detractors would ever really hit him with that creative slur, which is the word cliche. Except for maybe, in my opinion, The Whale, which I think is one of his worst movies. And given this movie's cliche tendencies and The Whale, he's not on the best trajectory in my opinion, but we'll see what he does next. Normally, I don't like to do a lot of external research after I watch a movie or before. I'd rather just review the movie as it is. But I did look up the writer in this case, the sole writer of the screenplay. His name is Charlie Huston. I did so because I was curious if he was part of the Huston clan. He is not, but I did find out that Caught Stealing is based on his own book and is part of a series of books, all starring Hank, who is played by Austin Butler in the film, and each one has him on a different adventure, it sounds like. And the film itself really does feel like one of those types of books. The type of book that you pick up at an airport cafe and you breeze right through. It's good enough to turn the next page, but a week later, you don't remember any of it. It's written and designed to be an easily digestible distraction, rather than something that is more demanding of you, but ultimately more enriching. And I'm not just saying that because this film is about an ex-baseball player running around New York City with a crippled cat and Hasidic gangsters. A movie doesn't have to be a downer like Requiem for a Dream or about the human condition in order to be enriching or memorable. But to get to that point, a movie like this does need to have more unique, robust characters, a better ear for dialogue, and a story that doesn't feel so much like a blueprint. This movie does suffer from that, I would call it like an ending, very particular ending condition, and a lot of mass market paperbacks are like this too, where the film just comes together at the end in a far too clean and algebraic way. It's like when you're watching a sitcom and then the A storyline, the B storyline always have to come together at the end in some kind of way. In this attempt to make a fun popcorn movie, which I think he did make a fun movie, Aronofsky, I think he swung a little too far from his subversive instincts to make something approachable. Caught Stealing really could have used those subversive instincts. Now, not to make the movie more disturbing like Black Swan, or turn the story into something it's not, but just to buff out a lot of those cliches. For an example of what I'm talking about with the characters, there are two Hasidic gangsters in the film, one played by Vincent D'Onofrio, and the other played by Liev Schreiber. Their characters are written entirely around the contrast between their gangster activities like intimidating and shooting people and their Hasidic devotion. That's it. That's the joke, and that's their characters. It's just these two character traits layered on top of each other, with their dialogue being continual variations on this joke. It's just not really that funny, and they're not interesting characters, so there's just not a lot there. Now, Austin Butler's character, Hank, who is, of course, the main character, I think he actually works very well for this type of story, since all you really need for this type of role is a cool guy with a gimmick. And the baseball thing is a fun idea that the movie really could have done more with. You never really get his Jim Brown activating fullback mode in the Dirty Dozen moment. I think I had the most fun with Matt Smith's character and this Puerto Rican gangster guy with an afro. Sometimes an accent and a funny haircut really just take you a long way. This episode of Feature Underground is brought to you by Manuka Honey. Good for when you have a sore throat and need to record your voice. It's really expensive, but really good. Speaking of the characters, I do also want to mention that Griffin Dunn is in this movie. He plays Hank's boss. He's this old hippie dude who probably has a rap sheet longer than his ponytail. And you could easily see him putting his arm around the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, ex-high school baseball star, out-of-towner, and just laying on him decades of street smarts. I bring him up not just to say that he's good in the movie, but also to say that his casting had to be intentional, since the film does feel very much like a child of After Hours, which starred Griffin Dunn. Not a child that After Hours is probably especially proud of, but a child nonetheless. And also worth mentioning very quickly is that the movie does just look really good. Darren Aronofsky, for as uncharacteristically routine as this screenplay is compared to his other movies, or most of his other movies, he does just have a great eye for what looks good. And not that I was ever there, but I do think the movie does a great job of evoking the dying breaths of that ragamuffin charm of New York City before it went full Starbucks, when there was still a little bit of that slimy New York City that you see in like the early De Palma movies. And after watching Highest to Lowest, which was my last review, that movie also takes place in New York City, it was nice to watch a movie that actually looks like a movie. Well, those are all my thoughts on caught stealing. Now is the time for you to let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. I don't think there are currently any screenings for next week, so that means I may very well do a Feature Underground video next week. If you don't know, Feature Underground is my series where I review not an upcoming movie, but my favorite movies of all time. Previously, I have done one for High and Low, and I did one for Charlie Chaplin's The Circus. And until then, as always, I leave you with the inescapable knowledge that every day underground is a good day.